how's everyone doing today? Hopefully you guys are doing well. And today we're taking a look back at Godzilla Millennium, or commonly known as Godzilla 2000. And this movie has been very influential in the Godzilla community, as this is the first official Japanese Godzilla movie that people had probably seen in theaters at the time, and from what I understand, it's also a lot of people's main exposure to the Japanese style of Godzilla. All the more mainstream media and here in the US was more exposed to the 98 movie at the time, which the 98 movie was the entire reason as to why this movie exists, is because Toho was not very happy. Even though they did greenlight quite a few things in that movie, like Godzilla's design, they completely greenlit. However, true Godzilla fans at the time were not very happy with the 98 movie, and that's why Godzilla 2000 was made immediately after the 98 movie in 1999. So I'm not entirely sure why it was titled Godzilla 2000 or why the name changed, but however, the name still sounds cool. So let's go ahead and do this retrospective review. And with the return of Godzilla at the time from Toho Studios, which was supposed to be delayed until 2005, and they weren't supposed to make another Godzilla movie until 2005, then the 98 movie came out and they were like, screw it, let's just make another one. With the return of that Godzilla, we got a brand new Godzilla design. And yeah, I found this at my local store because I really do like the Millennium Godzilla design. It's very sharp, it's aggressive. I really like the sharp jaggedness of the spikes. The purple spikes were a very unique touch. This is also the first Godzilla that's officially been known to be green, and you can see it in certain lighting of the movie. Obviously you can't see it during nighttime scenes, but during the daytime scenes you can definitely tell there's a bit of green in there. And it's just a very unique design. It feels so 2000s at the time. A lot of people probably don't like the design because they're like, oh, they feel like they're trying too hard to make the Godzilla look cool. I really like the design, and it's one of my personal favorites. I still prefer it over the new design that they have in Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, but that design does remind me a lot of the Millennium Godzilla design. And with this movie being almost 25 years old, you can definitely tell there's a lot of age in this movie as well. Obviously, Toho at the time did not have the technology that they do now, or even that US had at the time. So they did try to mix practical effects with CG effects. And sometimes it did work, like when they used the fully metal missiles against Godzilla, or even some parts of the Godzilla versus Orga fight near the end, which we'll touch more on later. Those elements worked really well in the movie, but scenes like the fully rendered Godzilla scene where he's underwater looked atrocious. It looked like a straight up video game. It at the time didn't work either. And even parts where you can tell there were some green screen moments from Godzilla in the movie that also really did not look very good at all. But I can appreciate the fact that at the time they were trying to try something a little bit different and trying to be what was considered modern at the time. They weren't trying to stick strictly to practical effects the entire movie, but they're also trying to implement more like computer elements into these movies. And that's something I could really appreciate that they did. Now, it didn't fully work out, not always in this movie, but I can still find appreciation for what they were trying to do at the time. And this movie was such a breath of fresh air from the 98 movie, where essentially it returns back to form with Godzilla, where they have this Godzilla prediction network that follows Godzilla the entire movie, while this main villain known as Karagiri, which Karagiri is MVP of the movie, don't at me.
Come on! Leave me.
Is chasing Godzilla, trying to destroy him because he's basically causing mayhem and destruction in Japan. Meanwhile, the government discovered this unknown vessel, which is named the Millenniums, which is why this movie's titled Godzilla Millennium. The space vessel begins to rise out of the water and decides to challenge Godzilla to a fight, scanning his DNA, determining that he is the ultimate life form of the planet and likes to take form in the shape of a Godzilla. Now it's up to Godzilla to stop the newer threat of the Millenniums, while also the humans have to find a way to stop Godzilla in the process. It's a very straightforward plot, and that's something I really liked about Godzilla 2000 was the plot was simple, it was straightforward. I also really think the human characters really are not that great in this movie, but they're a lot better than that 98 movie. You can tell they were trying to go for just being a little bit more comical in the movie. The daughter and father relationship in this movie with the Godzilla Prediction Network, I really liked that. It felt very genuine. It felt very sweet at times, although the father is a complete doofus at times. The main highlight of the movie in terms of human characters is definitely Katagiri. Katagiri is like the ultimate over-the-top bad guy in this movie. Like, he is there to cause problems. He's there to destroy Godzilla by any means necessary. He's so obsessed with trying to destroy Godzilla, which I guess doesn't make him a quote-unquote villain per se in this movie, considering the fact that Godzilla is a bad guy in this movie. However, it's just that his obsession makes him do things that are just not considered right. Like, knowing that there's people in a building and then he blows it up anyways to try to stop a threat, you know, is not the best course of action, obviously. But I want to say that he was particularly a villain in this movie, and he does give us one of the most iconic lines in a Godzilla movie of all time.
Godzilla!
It's so over the top and so goofy, but you can't help to love his character. He is clearly MVP of the movie, don't at me. Now that we got the humans out of the way and the plots out of the way, let's go and discuss some things that I think also worked really well in this movie as well. I really like the change up that they had for Godzilla's atomic ray in this movie. They could have gone with the traditional blue, but they decided to try something different with the orange, and it makes it strictly unique to this version of Godzilla. It's not like it's a generally more powerful beam than what he's had before. It's just a switch up in terms of color palette, and I think it really works with offsetting the purple and the spikes and everything. It really makes it like stand out. I also love how he used it like kind of like utility in the final battle, where he gets wrapped up in wires and uses the atomic ray and his dorsal fins heat up and it cuts the wires before he fires. I thought that was very unique at the time. Also, I really like how they introduced introduced a concept in this movie as to why Godzilla can withstand so much damage. There was mentionings of Godzilla having regenerative abilities in the 80s movies or the Heisei series. However, it was never highlighted quite as much as this movie did, where they essentially said he's basically like Wolverine. And I thought that was a very unique concept as to why Godzilla could take so much damage, because again, before, Godzilla was just a giant monster, so therefore they were like, okay, so that means he's bulletproof, missile-proof, and everything proof, right? So that's why he's able to withstand so much damage, because he's just a giant monster. In this one, they were like, no, he actually has regenerative abilities, and that's something that they took to the next level in the most recent Godzilla movie, -1, where Godzilla is able to fully regenerate whole limbs. He has parts of his face blown off, and he can regenerate parts of his face. Like I said, if this movie didn't do the Regenerator G1, they probably would not have done it in -1. So that's something I thought was very unique even at the time. Which is also why the organism known as Orga, who ends up being the main monster that Godzilla ends up fighting at the end of the movie, is so obsessed with Godzilla's DNA, is because not just because he's so powerful in the radiation and everything, but also because of its regenerative abilities. With regenerative abilities like that, it basically can be nearly unstoppable. So it's the end of the movie, all the events have unfolded, we have the final finale, Godzilla versus Orga, and this fight was actually not that bad. They did what they could with the big bulky monster suit of Orga. I really like the design that they had for Orga in this movie. The big hands are really the standout of this design. It makes it more different from other Godzilla villains that he's faced before. And this wouldn't be the first Godzilla movie where something tried to clone him or was another clone of him, but I think this is the first Godzilla movie where we actually see the monster legitimately try to absorb Godzilla via eating him. And that was a very unique moment in the Godzilla movies. Also love the details of like the dorsal fins coming out from the back of him as he's trying to absorb Godzilla and eat him, while also giving us one of the best monster movie finishes of all time where Godzilla blows Orga up from the inside. Also, I really like how the movie ended with Godzilla killing Karagiri, but then normally at the end of a Godzilla movie he would just go back to the ocean and just leave in peace. No, it's like in this movie it's like humanity accepts their defeat. You see Godzilla blowing up the city, which I guess is the perfect time to talk about the English dub, because the English dub for Godzilla 2000 is very, very weird. Like, as Godzilla is destroying the city in the scene in the English dub, they have this line in there where they say, "Why does Godzilla keep saving us?" Like, which is completely contradictory of what's happening in the scene. And they have so many moments like that in the dub. Even just the goofy music that they throw in there and little minor elements. Like, I think that even at times in the English dub as well, they use the 98 Godzilla's roar. There's very weird moments in there. Although I will say I do prefer watching the English dub because it adds a little bit of cheesiness to the movie, which is a little bit more bland. And that's something I want to talk about this movie as well, is the fact that, again, this was a return to Godzilla and formula that we're used to from Toho, and you know, it's definitely way better than the 98 movie for sure, and it introduces a lot of elements that you can like in a Godzilla movie. And this is something you think of when you watch a Godzilla movie, is two people in rubber monster suits beating the crap out of each other in a city. However, I think that's the problem, is that it doesn't do anything beyond what you would expect in a Godzilla movie. I think that the problem that I have with Godzilla 2000 is that it's really nothing unique and special if you really look at it. It's another run-of-the-mill Godzilla movie with very bland human characters that you have to sit through. And, you know, a lot of people praise this movie because a lot of them, this is their first exposure to Godzilla, and a lot of people do say that this is their favorite Godzilla movie. I'm not in the same boat. I think that if you're trying to get people on board with Godzilla, this might be a good starter. But for me personally, I want to go out my way trying to watch this movie because it doesn't really have anything that I really want to rewatch. I think the only part that I would really rewatch from this movie is the finisher that Godzilla uses on Orga. But the rest of the movie, I don't think I personally would visit again. And I'm saying this as a massive Godzilla fan. I like a lot of stuff Godzilla. Like, even the 98 movie, I still point out stuff in that movie that I don't think was entirely bad. But again, I think that, this movie plays things a little bit too safe. And that's why this movie hasn't stuck with every G fan. Except the design. The design, I think, has stuck with a lot of fans in general. But yeah, that was Godzilla 2000. And that was my retrospective review of Godzilla 2000. What was your guys' first exposure to this movie? Did you guys watch this movie in theaters? Did you guys rent this? Did you guys buy it? What was your first exposure? Comment that down below in the comment section. Also, I'll leave my other video link for when I ranked all the Godzilla designs in the comment section or description below in this video. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys for watching this video. And Godzilla, do you have anything to say? Yeah, so basically Godzilla was telling you guys to like, share, and subscribe today to join the Isolation.